StraihtAllDay.com.
You are now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. What is that? That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques, all underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called work on your game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is how to look for and also find the shortcuts. Yes, we're going to talk about shortcuts here in today's episode. But before I explain where this topic is coming from and where it is going, let me tell you all that I have a daily motivation text message that I send out for free every morning to everyone who's in my text community. If you didn't know about this, now you know about it. Let me tell you how you can start to receive it. All you got to do is text me at my number, which is 305-384-6894. And every morning you're going to receive a message that's guaranteed to keep you focused, sharp, and on point, at least temporarily, until I send the next one out the next day, or until you take the next step in my world. I'll tell you about those in a second. But text me at that number so you're getting the daily motivation every single day. Second thing that you can do, this is the next step that you take. So you're getting the daily motivation text, and some of you are already doing it. Here's the next thing that all of you can do, is go get your ticket to my next live in-person event. It is called Work on Your Game Live. It is taking place February 3rd and 4th, 2023 in Miami, Florida. If you are listening to this, because I know a lot of people listen to back catalog episodes of this show. So if you listen to this after February 3rd and 4th, 2023, still go to the link, which is workonyourgame.live, and you'll know about the next Work on Your Game Live event, whatever it's going to be and whenever it's going to be, or you can at least get on the alert list to know when the next event is taking place. Go to workonyourgame.live so that you can get your ticket to the next event, and or get on the waiting list for the next event so that you know when the next one is taking place. At that event, this next one is coming up. We're going to be covering mindset, strategy, systems, and execution for your business and your personal life. I want you to understand that what we talk about here at Work on Your Game is not just for the stuff that you do at work, where you make your money and pay your bills. I talk about things and give you strategies and systems that you can utilize in your personal life. So when it comes to just your daily routine, your morning routines, when it comes to your workouts, when it comes to what you're putting in your body, all of that stuff is going to be covered at Work on Your Game Live. And the frameworks that I give you, you can take them and apply them to any aspect of your life, even if we don't talk about them directly. So get your ticket at workonyourgame.live. And the third thing, if you would like to work with me directly, and or you want to get access to all of my training, all of my courses, all of my materials, and by the way, right now, as of this recording, when I'm recording this episode, it may be out by the time you see it, but inside my university called Work on Your Game University, so any of you who's thinking about going to college and you're not sure you want to go, I can save you some money. Instead of putting all your money and go to a university and being indoctrinated with some garbage, it'll be some good stuff. There's some good teachers out there, but also some garbage. I'll tell you, you can get 100% ROI, more than 100% ROI, but actually get 100% value from everything that you learn if you just go to Work on Your Game University. They'll get all the education you need for the rest of your life. All you got to do is go to workonyourgameuniversity.com, where you have two options. One is you can join my coaching program, where you will be coached directly by me, meaning you will be on calls directly with me. You can ask me questions, you can share challenges with me and get direct answers from me. Just go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. There's a button there where you can schedule a time to get on the call with me. There's a quick application that you fill out just so we know who you are and what you're about. So when we get on the call, I already know what direction we're headed, what we need to talk about. And the other option you'll see on that same page, this is workonyourgameuniversity.com, is where you can get access to all of my courses, all of my self-learning material that you can take at your own pace. I have courses on everything from mindset to content creation to selling yourself to business to putting strategies and systems in place. I'm in the process right now of creating 2 new courses that are going to go into the university on building your business from scratch, and also when it comes to your health and nutrition and how you take care of your body. Yes, I'm putting that inside of the university. So as I told you, everything you're going to need to be successful in your life. Forget about just work, everything, because all of life is not just your work. All of that's going to be inside of Work on Your Game University. So go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. There are only 2 buttons on the page, so you can't possibly mess this up. And just pick either one and you can move on from there. So now let's get into today's topic, which is how to look for and find the shortcuts. Now, some of you may be surprised at this topic because This is a guy who tells you I've told you in the past, beware of anyone telling you that there can be shortcuts, and now I'm telling you to look for the shortcuts. So this topic is in conflict with some of the things that I've said in the past. And guess what? In the future, I will tell you again to beware of people who are telling you to look for a shortcut in certain aspects, in certain contexts. So why am I telling you to look for shortcuts here? Isn't that in conflict? Aren't these contradictory ideas that I'm giving you? And the answer is yes, these are contradictory ideas. And I want you to understand that good advice will always be in contradiction to some other advice, because there is no one quote unquote right way to live or one right way to be successful, folks. There are some pieces of advice that are accurate and true for you at certain points in times in your life that you should follow, and there are other times you're going to get conflicting advice that is completely in opposition to the advice you got before, that it's true for you at that time and in that place in life. All right, there is a time in life, for example, when you should be loud and draw a ton of attention to yourself, and there's also times in life when you should be quiet and not draw any attention to yourself. Both of them are true, and depending on where you are and what you're doing in life, there are times when both of them are accurate and should be followed. What you need in life is not the knowledge of all the information, but the wisdom, which is how you determine which information to follow and which information not to follow at certain times. So this is why everything is not black and white. Like, okay, you got all this information, so now which one should I follow? Which one is right? Which one is wrong? That's not the way life works. If it was that simple, then we wouldn't need human beings. Everything could just go by no robots, because robots can just follow black and white binary ideas. So understand that things change with circumstances, and there are times when you need to do all the work and you got to do things the long way. For example, as an athlete, there's no shortcut. If you want to get better at dribbling a basketball or throwing a football, or you want to improve your backstroke in the swimming pool, there's no shortcut to getting good at that. You just got to put the hours in, put the time in, and get better at it. There are times you need to go the long way, and there are also times in life when you should look for the quick way, you should look for the shortcuts, you should look for the ways that you can kind of skip the line and jump the line. And there are many times in business where it is very possible to do this, and I'm going to give you some examples here in today's episode. So today we're talking about the quick way. What are the times when you should go and look for that quick way, and how do you actually do it? Point number one. Today's topic, once again, is how to look for and find the shortcuts. Well, the first thing is I got to give credit to Mr. Tim Ferriss, who's the author of the 4-Hour series of books. A book that I mentioned many times here is the 4-Hour Work Week, and he's the one who, based on what he talked about in his books, even though I wasn't reading one of his books when I came up with the actual topic here today, I do have to give him credit for planting the seed years ago for this very idea. Because he's the first person that I heard talk about it and talk about this all the time, that you don't have to go the long way in everything you do in life to be successful. He was the first person I heard say that, and then back it up with some logical, reasonable, rational arguments for why, and some examples of how he proved it to be true. He was the first person I heard say this. So the question Tim would ask himself is, and he would talk about this in his books, and he would frame basically the thesis of his books around this. He would say, all right, if I had to achieve this outcome in half the time, or I had to do it in 25% of the time, how would I do it? So instead of me taking 10 years to become a good basketball player, how could I become a good basketball player in 1 year? Or instead of me going to chef school, I forget what they call it, culinary school, to become a good chef, how can I learn to be a good cook in 6 weeks? If I had to do it, how would I do it? So he would ask himself that question, which is a really good question, and then he would go about trying to figure out how to answer the question. And then once he figured it out, he would write books about it. That's pretty much how Tim built his career. So he created his entire brand on this framework, and this made him a household name to the point that many of you know who he is, and even if you don't, you probably have heard of his books. So the 4-Hour Work Week, for example, is based on asking the question, how can I run a business without working 70 hours a week and running myself into the ground and into near exhaustion? Because for those of you who don't know, when Tim wrote his book, The 4-Hour Work Week, one of the reasons that he did the experiments that he did that became the book is because he was running a company, and he was damn near to the point of a mental and physical exhaustion, and he bought a plane ticket, went out of the country and didn't buy a return ticket, and told his team, listen, just handle things without me. I'm not available to reach, so whatever you need to do to solve any problem that comes up, solve it, but don't call me, don't try to get in touch with me, I'm not available. And he just let them run the business, and during his time away, while he was recuperating from being nearly exhausted, he came up with the frameworks and the ideas that became the 4-Hour Work Week. Then he wrote a book called The 4-Hour Body, which is based on the question of basically doing the same thing, but for getting into great physical shape. So how can I get into great physical shape without spending an hour and a half a day in the gym? And then he wrote a book called The 4-Hour Chef, which is not actually about cooking food, but it's really about how can I learn things and become proficient at them in a shorter period than, let's say, the proverbial 10,000 hours. So your question will be, if I had to achieve result X in half of the time, or I had to do something like achieve my 1 year goals in 1 month, or if I had to achieve my 5-year plan in 1 year, how would I do it? And then what you want to do is go out and experiment on things based on the answers that you come up with and see what you can find. Now, even if you don't perfectly achieve the outcome, I guarantee you probably will get a lot closer in achieving that goal and get there a lot sooner than you would have had you continued to do things the traditional way. So if I ask myself, all right, how can I achieve my 1 year goals? How can I make all my 1 year plan happen in the next 6 weeks? I might not succeed in achieving all of it in 6 weeks, but by asking the question and then seeking the answers and then applying whatever I come up with or whatever I learn or whatever ideas I get, I could probably achieve it. Even if I don't achieve it all in 6 weeks, maybe I'll do it in 6 months. Isn't 6 months better than 1 year? So as the saying goes, you aim for the, what do they call it? Shoot for the moon. Even if you miss, you land amongst the stars. So even if you come up short, you probably still will achieve things a lot faster and get things done a lot better than you would on your own. So this is why asking this question matters so much. It's simply, and this is why I wrote a book called Ask Yourself a Better Question. Sometimes when you just ask yourself a higher quality question, not sometimes, but all the time, when you ask yourself a higher quality question with the expectation that you'll come up with an answer, what happens is your brain goes to work on a different mission, which leads to you coming up with ideas that you otherwise never would have come up with. Not because all of a sudden you became smarter, but simply because you gave your brain a different job to do. Something that you may have heard me say before, and you will hear me say again, is that the human brain is the most powerful tool known to man. The challenge, one of the biggest challenges, or you could even call it problems for a lot of humans, is that we rarely put our brains to their anywhere close to the full capacity of what they're capable of doing for us. There's a saying that's been around for years that human beings only use about 10% of their brains. That has been debunked and proven as not actually true. But I do believe that whatever amount we're using is less than 100%. Now, we're not using 100% of our brains. I can attest to that. In that, we rarely ask ourselves the quality of questions that would really activate our brains to give us the best that they have available. Meaning, when you ask yourself a question like, how can I achieve this 6-week goal in 2 weeks? Your brain will give you some ideas that, again, even if you don't get it done in 2 weeks, you might get it done in 4. And doesn't that saves you some time? You just bought yourself 2 weeks of time, not because all of a sudden you got better. It's because you just ask yourself a higher quality question. Human brain can do a lot if we ask it to do it. The thing is, we rarely ask of ourselves to do certain things, and because we never ask ourselves to do them, we never pull it out of ourselves. And this is why I told you in episode, I believe it was episode 482, but let me make sure that I'm correct on that. 468 is actually the number. Episode 468 is the graveyard, the most valuable real estate on earth. The reason the graveyard is the most valuable real estate on earth is because many people die without getting all of their potential or anywhere close to their full potential out of them. And one of the main reasons why we don't get our potential out of us is not because we lack motivation, it's not because we don't have resources, it's not because we are blocked from accessing opportunity. These are the common reasons and excuses that people like to give when they're not achieving or they're talking about someone else not achieving. The main reason why we don't achieve at the level that we could achieve is simply because we never demand or ask of ourselves to do so. We don't ask ourselves quality questions. We ask ourselves stuff like, okay, this is going to take a year to do. Why do I have to spend a year doing this? That's a low quality question. Instead, if you ask, okay, instead of this taking a year, what if I had to get this done in 2 months? What would I do different? How could I fast track this? This is just an example of a higher quality question that will lead to you probably doing things more efficiently. That, again, if it didn't take 2 months, but it took 6 months, you just bought yourself some time by asking yourself a higher quality question. One of the biggest challenges for many of us as humans is that we simply don't ask ourselves quality questions. And this is one of the main reasons why we don't get all of our potential out of us. Not because we can't, simply because we never demand it of ourselves. When you demand of yourself, usually you find a way to deliver it. Again, a demand is different than a request, and it's different than a wish. A lot of people wish things for themselves, and wishes, no, I mean, this is not Disney World. Most of our wishes don't actually happen because they're just a wish. Now, when we ask ourselves, what happens is we get the opportunity, we put ourselves in a position of potential energy. But we know potential energy has to be made kinetic. Kinetic energy is energy in motion. But we at least have the potential when we ask ourselves better quality questions. And when we demand of ourselves to do something, that's when we really do great things. Challenge for many people, though, is that we rarely make demands of ourselves. Because when we make demands of ourselves, now we're putting ourselves on the hook. Now we're giving ourselves a responsibility. And frankly, a lot of human beings don't like to give themselves responsibility because now you got to live up to it. And when you got to live up to a responsibility, now you have power. And a lot of people, even though many people say they want power, many people don't actually want power, because with power comes more responsibility. It's like a cycle. They work together. Moving on to point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is how to look for and find the shortcuts. So this first point is all about the more demands you make of yourself, the higher the chances that you will find and actually implement any shortcut that you find. Point number 2 is this. What stops people from even asking this question, let alone answering it or acting on the possible answers? This is a question I'm asking you. Let me say it again. What stops most people from asking this question or answering it once they answer it, or answering it once they ask it, or acting on the answers once they have answers? Why do most people not do this? Now, I just gave you some reasons. I told you that the power and responsibility, I told you about the power and responsibility to come with asking a question like this, but let me tell you a little bit more about why people shy away from the power and responsibility. Now let's dive deeper into this. You know what the answer is? It's a simple word that all you're familiar with. The word is fear. F-E-A-R, fear. Now, just in yesterday's episode, I told you that your fears are overrated. So I was setting you up with yesterday's episode for what I'm talking about here today. So fear of what? What exactly is somebody afraid of that they won't ask themselves, how can I achieve an outcome faster? How can I get more done in less time? Why would somebody be afraid of asking a question like that? Some of you are listening to me right now saying, Drea, I'm perplexed. Why would anybody be afraid of doing that? Why would you be afraid of doing that? Let me tell you why. Because, first of all, the fears we're talking about are fears of going against the grain. The fear of doing something different than what everybody else is doing. The fear of, check this one out, actually achieving your outcome with a lot less effort and a lot less time, and feeling like something is wrong simply because you are not working yourself to the bone the way you have been conditioned and trained to do all of your life. I think I need to say that last sentence again. This is a big one right here, because I'll tell you why it's a big one in a second. Let me say this sentence again. The fear, what stops a lot of people from looking for or implementing shortcuts, is the fear of actually achieving your desired outcome with less effort in less time, and thus you will feel like something is wrong because you are not working yourself to the bone the way you have been trained to do all of your life. All of us, let me not say all of us, most of us, especially if you've grown up in the United States and you've gone through the traditional schooling system, the traditional education system, and your parents, the people who raised you, whoever raised you, if they went through the traditional educational system, they can only teach you what they know. And then they go through the traditional work environment. Doesn't matter what kind of work they do. They can be entrepreneurs, they can be working at a job, doesn't matter. Is that we all got taught what? That one of the keys to success is you got to be a hard worker. And when we see people who are successful, we see that they work hard, and we draw this connection between the two, that success equals hard work. And if you're not as successful as you want to be, then you probably had to do a lot more hard work. What Tim Ferriss did and what made his work stand out was the fact that he went against the grain and said, well, maybe you don't have to do so much hard work. Maybe there's a shortcut here and you could achieve a similar outcome, or at least 80 to 90% of an outcome, in like 10% of the effort, with like 10% of the effort and 10% of the time. And people could look at that, and even if they logically understand it, still won't do it, simply because it goes against the emotional wiring that is within you. This is the fear. The emotional wiring within you, ladies and gentlemen, is stronger than any logical argument I could ever make on this show. Let me repeat what I just said because this is a very important point. The emotional wiring within you is stronger than any logical argument I can or will ever make on this show. This is episode number of this show. This is episode number 2419 of the Work on Your Game Masterclass. Do you know how many hours of material that is? Now, I'm a person who, admittedly, I talked about this several episodes ago. Admittedly, I like to make my arguments based on rationality and logic. That's the way that I just like to build my arguments. It's the way that my mind works. It's the way that I am wired. It's the way that I think. So a lot of what you hear on this show, if you listen to enough episodes of this show, you're going to get a whole lot of logical, rational arguments. Even if you disagree with them, they're all logical and rational based. That's just the way that I think. It's the way that I talk. It's the way I communicate. Nothing that I say here on a logical level will overcome anything that's wired in you emotionally, even if the thing that's wired in you emotionally is the very thing that is holding you back and slowing you down, even when you are 100% aware of the fact that it's the thing slowing you down. You still won't do anything different until you do something about that emotional issue that you got within you. There are many people, many of you listening to me now, who don't feel like you have earned success unless you have worked really hard and beat yourself into the concrete in the process of doing so. In other words, if you were able to achieve success very easily with very little effort in a short period of time, you wouldn't feel like you actually were successful because you didn't work super hard in order to achieve it. This is your emotional wiring. It doesn't make any logical sense. Just your emotional wiring talking to you. And until you have done that super hard work, you won't feel like you've achieved anything. You'll feel like, hey, I haven't done anything yet because I'm not super tired. I'm not working 70 hours a week. It didn't take me 10 years to achieve this. I'm not working as hard as everybody else or harder than everybody else, so I feel like I haven't achieved success. There are many of you who, this is just the way that you have been conditioned. Again, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just the way you've been conditioned. This mindset is the very thing that is keeping you from getting to the outcomes that you want to get to, because at your current pace, you're not going to get there. You're going to run out of time. Now, my Bulletproof Mindset course, I talk about, we go into the emotional stuff. So even though a lot of stuff I talk about here on the show is the logical, rational based arguments that I make, in my Bulletproof Mindset course, I break all this stuff down. You go to workonyourgameuniversity.com, you can get into the university, and Bulletproof Mindset is the first course that most people, 95% of people come into my university, they ask me, where should I start? Bulletproof Mindset. All right, just in case any of you is wondering. While hard work is an element of success, it is not the main reason for most people's success. Even though many people will tell you it's the main element, that's because most people don't know how to explain, they can't articulate and explain their success. And this is an unfortunality, is that a word? That's an unfortunate thing, because what happens is so many people have been indoctrinated with this idea. This is what I've said already so far. Biggest impediment to getting this thought out of people's minds is that many successful, again, they have faulty explanations for their success. So the only thing that they can tell you is how hard they work, because it sounds good and it gets a round of applause, and for the most part, most people agree with it. Oh, well, this actor or actress is so good because they work so hard, or this basketball player is so good because of how hard they work, or this entrepreneur made so much money because they're just such a hard worker. And then on the top of the fact that they do work hard, it just seems to make logical sense. But the problem is, when you look at this logically, are there a whole bunch of hardworking actors and athletes and entertainers and business owners who aren't successful? Of course there are. So by deductive reasoning, hard work alone ain't the key to success. This is a whole bunch of hardworking people that are not successful. But nobody wants to talk about that, because that would require you to actually deconstruct what you've been taught all your life, and that some of the things that you believe might not actually be true. And a lot of people just don't want to deal with that, because again, this is where the fear kicks in. That everything that you believed for the last 30 years of your life might not be true. And a lot of people simply don't want to deal with that possibility / reality, and therefore they just ignore it. This is the fear. So I'm a hard-working individual. I think if you listen to enough episodes of this show and you understand that this is literally episode 2419 of the show, I think you can agree I'm a pretty hard-working individual. I've written 33 books. Those didn't just appear magically. I wish they did, because if they did, I would write 330 books instead of 33. But it takes work to do that. All right, to be an athlete, it takes work. The things that I do take work. I am a hard-working individual, but I can tell you directly that the success that I've created is not a result of hard work. The hard work is part of it, it's part of the recipe, but it ain't because of hard work. My success is a result of hard work at the right things. That's effort combined with strategy and systems. That's why these are the things that I emphasize. I'm going to be talking about at my event, Work on Your Game Live, to which you can get tickets at workonyourgame.live. It's also a result of my mindset, because the mindset leads me to understanding that effort alone is not going to get me to success, and that I'm going to need some strategy and systems to make it work. So you see how the mindset leads to the things that combine with the hard work to make things work out. So it's the hard work plus the strategy plus the systems, things work out, not just the work on its own. Too many of you, I posted this on social media probably in early December, maybe late November 2022. There are many professionals out there and amateurs who are in an abusive relationship with hard work, yet you refuse to file for divorce. Should I say that one again? Let me say it again. There are many of you out there who are in abusive relationships with hard work, and you refuse to file for divorce. I'll let you think about that when we move on to point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is how to look for and find the shortcuts. Number 3, I'm gonna give you the secret to the shortcuts, because that's what we're talking about here today. I've primed your brain for this. The secret to the shortcuts is people. That's the secret. The secret is not on Google. The secret is not in a book. The secret is not in a course necessarily, even though everything that's on Google, everything that's in a book, and everything that's in a course was made by a person. But the secret to the shortcut is people, period. Remember that I told you that we are in the collaboration era. This is the era that we're in right now in the world, is the era of collaboration. I talked about this in episode number 2293. The collaboration economy is the economy we live in these days. In other words, the people who are doing the most business and doing it most efficiently and creating the most velocity in their business are doing so through collaboration, not through effort, not because they have information, but because of their ability to collaborate with others. That's where all the business is going these days. And some of you may not quite understand this. I'm going to give you a simple example. What are any of you have kids, or you deal with kids? Let's say you're a school teacher, or you work with youth, people who are under the age of 18. And you ask a lot of them what do they want to be when they grow up. And they might already start being it right now. What's the answer that most of you hear? Most often these days. I know the answer. I don't even work with youth. And I have a kid, but my kid's not even talking yet. But I know kids who are old enough to talk, but young enough that they're not legal yet. What is it they want to be? In the United States, at least, they want to be influencers. They want to be influenced. They want to be YouTubers, TikTokers, Instagrammers, etc. Podcasters, I guess, maybe, etc. That's what they want to be. I want you to ask yourself a question. Instagram. What other apps we got? Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, the podcast app, YouTube, TikTok. What are all those apps doing? Let me tell you what they do. They provide the platform, number 1. They provide all the people, number 2. And all they ask you or us to provide is what? The content. What is that, folks? That is a collaboration. TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, all they are doing is collaborating. They are offering a collaboration. We got the platform, you got the content, you create what they call UGC, user generated content. We provide the platform, so you put your user generated content on our platform, and we'll provide all the people. So we'll tell the people about your content. You get the attention, and maybe you can get some money from it, and we get to monetize all the time that everybody spends looking at your content. That's the business deal. Amazon, same thing. Any of you have a book on Amazon or any products that you sell on Amazon? I know some people in my community who are Amazon salespeople. What does Amazon do? Amazon says, we got all the customers, they got the money, you got the products and the services, you sell your stuff on our platform. Every time a sale gets made, you get some, we get some. What is that? That's collaboration. This is the collaboration economy. And when I say people, this is what I mean. Collaboration. The secret to finding the shortcuts in your life or your business is to engage with, learn from, pick the brains of, and borrow the habits and strategies of other people, or use the platforms of other people. There are other people who are achieving the same outcomes that you want to achieve, but they're doing it 10 times faster than you, not because they're smarter than you. They are definitely not working harder than you, and they don't have access to resources that you don't have access to. They don't have any of that, simply because they have a way of thinking that is different from yours, and they are using it. And the good news is you can do the same thing. But in order for you to do the same thing, the first thing you got to do is stop doing the wrong thing. You got to get out of your own head and get out of the mindset that the only way you can become successful is that you have to hard work your way to accomplishment. And many of you are gonna, I'm not gonna say many of you, many people out there, hopefully most of you will be converted, but there are many people out there who are going to live their entire lives under this idea that they have to hard work their way to accomplishment, that if they're not working super hard, that they cannot be successful, and therefore they will never do anything other than what they've been taught. And I want you to, here's the other thing I want you to think about, and I'll leave it on this point, then we'll do a recap, is think about the people who taught you that hard work was the key to your success, that you just had to hard work and give effort and try hard and struggle and strive in order to be successful. I want you to think about who those people were who taught you that, whether they were your school teachers, your parents, people around you, your siblings, people in your neighborhood. I want you to look at the success that they created. Look at what they created in their lives and ask yourself, would you be okay with your success going to where they got to? Or are you trying to do a little bit better than them, or maybe a lot better than them? And if you don't like the success that they created becoming your success, then you should ask yourself something. Okay, how can I take the parts that are useful from that person and leave the rest? I talked about this in episode number 2337. Eat the meat, spit out the bones. So the people who raised you, maybe they taught you some very good things, good home training, good principles, no ideas and no manners, and etc., etc. But there's some other things they taught you that you probably should need to get rid of. All right, again, eat the meat. That's the good stuff that you could use. Spit out the bones. That's the stuff that you should probably dismiss, because it's not going to help you in the world that you're in with this success that you want to create. And this is where wisdom comes in. All right, recapping today's class, which is how to look for and find shortcuts. Point number one, point number one is, let me get back to my points here. Giving credit to Tim Ferriss, he's the first person I heard talk about this, just asking himself a very quality question, which is how can I achieve the same outcome in half the time or 25% of the time? If I had to achieve this in less time or do it a lot faster, how would I do it? This is a great question that everyone listening to me should start asking, because even if you don't do this perfectly, let's say you can't achieve the outcome in half the time, but let's say you save 20% on your time, you just bought yourself some time just by asking yourself a higher quality question. This is one of the reasons why I always tell you asking the right question is more important than having the right answer. I talked about this in episode number 2065 and also episode number 1741. Number two, what stops most people from even asking the question is fear. And it's the fear of doing something different than what you've been hardwired to do your entire lives. And these are things you've been taught since you were a child, that hard work is the key to success. You just got to be given effort. If you're not given effort, then you can't be successful. And if you achieve any level of success but you didn't give a ton of effort, then it's not real success. This is the very thing that holds a lot of people back from looking for or ever finding or implementing a shortcut, simply because it's been wired into you that you had to do something other than what I'm talking about right here today. Point number three, secret to the shortcuts is people. Secrets to finding shortcuts in life is to engage with, learn from, pick the brains of, and borrow the habits and strategies of other people. There are people out there who are achieving outcomes that you're achieving, just they're doing it 10 times faster than you are, and not because they're giving more effort, not because they're smarter and they don't have access to resources that you don't have. They're simply asking themselves a different set of questions than what you're asking yourself. They have a different way of thinking than you do, therefore they're playing a different game than you. So you're both working, but they're playing a game that's a lot easier for them to win than it is for you to win your game. All you got to do is change the game you're playing. All of a sudden things change. With that said, text me to get my daily motivation straight to your phone every day. My number is 305-384-6894. Second, go to workonyourgame.live. Get your ticket to my next event happening February 3rd and 4th in Miami. Third, workonyourgameuniversity.com. If you want to work with me in my coaching program, get coached directly by me, and or get access to all of my courses, all of my training programs, especially that Bulletproof Mindset 2.0. It's the most important one that I have everybody start with. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. Work on your game. Dre, all